Thank you very much. Thank you, first of all, to organizers for inviting me to talk on this topic on learned societies. This is a very exciting for me. My background is in history, so I was trained specializing in ancient Roman history and Roman law, but I have not been studying Roman law for the past 15 years. So I currently work at the Federation of Finnish Learned Societies. And that actually leads to the topic of today. So at the Federation of Finnish Learned Societies, we want to understand the current role of learned societies in academia and what kind of role they play in the interface between science and society. So, and I also indicate in the first slide that I'm working in a group with colleagues, Emanuel Kulczycki from the Adam Mickiewicz University in Poznan, in Poland, and also Mikael Laakso, nowadays a professor at the University of Tampere. So in this presentation, I first talk about the problem, the issue, why are we interested in learned societies, what is the challenge. Then I talk about one research paper we have been working with Emanuel, Mikael, and also a colleague from Turkey, Cehra Taskin, to identify learned societies. And then I also would like to tell a bit about where we are going toward a global register of learned societies. And I would be very much interested in hearing from you also what kind of advantages, for instance, a registry of learned societies could offer for digital humanities or the work that you are doing. So let me start with the background. So I think learned societies, maybe some of you have actually studied learned societies or paid attention to learned societies. They are very well known type of organization from the history of science perspective. I saw in Martin's slide also the network for affiliations, and their learned societies were mentioned. So since the 17th century, learned societies, so they are basically voluntary non-profit organizations involving academics that are working to advance research in their specific field of expertise, either at national level or internationally. So these have been playing a very important role in advancing scholarship, in publishing, organizing conferences, advancing the public understanding of science, all type of central activities in the academia. So there are some names of societies. Academia Nazionale dei Lince, for instance, or Royal Society are very well known. Also, every country has Academy of Science, maybe several of them, but we also have more bottom-up societies where any interested researchers or even professionals or citizens can join the community. We have international societies like International Society for Scientometrics and Infometrics, of which I am a member, or we have national societies like Società Italiana di Storia della Scienza or something like this. Every country has societies. But while we know a lot of societies in what they did in history, and my colleague from Hungary just told me that there was 5 years ago a conference organized on history of learned societies, we know very little and surprisingly little about the current state of learned societies in specific country or internationally. So we don't know the number of societies, we don't know how they are organized, what they do, what are their prospects, so we lack a lot of information. Finland is an exception because we are one of the countries where we have an umbrella organization for national learned societies. There is something similar in Austria, something similar perhaps in France. Some academies of science, for instance, in Switzerland, operate as national umbrella organizations. So this is the backdrop for what we are doing. Currently, what we know about learned societies nationally or internationally is mainly based on surveys. So in Finland, we have conducted surveys to learned societies or even members of learned societies. Or we also did a couple of studies where we have investigated the role of learned societies in national scholarly publishing in Finland, or we made a survey to social sciences and humanities societies across 7 different countries in Europe. So this is mainly the approach that we can take currently. So we lack good, let's say, more quantifiable information and information sources linked, for instance, to bibliometric information sources and things like that. If we think of the importance of learned societies today, it is very difficult to pose this question or answer it. But for instance, there was a couple of years ago, IRIS survey that had over almost 65,000 respondents all over the world, researchers. And of these respondents, almost 80% indicated that they identify at least a little bit with a professional society. So this already gives an indication of the continuing importance of learned societies in academic life. We also did a kind of a work in progress paper with a colleague looking at lists from different European countries that tried to list national societies from at least 11 countries. And based on this information, we arrived at estimate that maybe in Europe there are 9,000, 10,000 learned societies. So we are actually looking at a relatively large group of organizations and important matrix connecting often researchers across national organizations. But we know very little about this matrix. So what we then did with colleagues Emmanuel and Mikael and also Cehre Taskin from Turkey is that we started to think how could we arrive with a good register or database of learned societies globally. And there were no easy solutions. So what we ended up doing is that we took a data set because we know that learned societies are important in publishing scholarly journals. So we first of all identified as large group of journals from ISSN Center and took the bibliographic information about those journals, where there is indication either of the publisher or co-publisher of the journal. And often maybe a society is publishing a journal in collaboration with Elsevier or some other type of other publisher. So based on ISSN data, we are able to generate a relatively large information base of potential learned societies. And then we also look at the research organization registry, ROR database, that has over 100,000 research organizations with a persistent identifier for those organizations. All universities, for instance, have ROR. So we wanted to work with these 2 databases and see how far we get. Because if we have a global register of learned societies, it would be useful to build on something already existing like research organization registry. So initially we hypothesized that we could perhaps identify learned society based on their names, like society mentioned in the name of organization or association or something like that. And we had to do it multilingually because, of course, in every country, societies have names in the specific language of the country. But soon we discovered that this is not a workable solution because there are very, very many false positives, and often the society's name. The society is not mentioned in the name at all, or the society doesn't specify the specific scholarly focus of the society. So that's why we wanted to narrow down the potential societies using the list of scholarly journals. And we identified from ISSN Center data almost 180,000 unique serials. We collected ISSNs from various sources like Crossref or Bielefeld list of open access journals, Ulrich's periodicals directory, PKB installation list, Finnish National Journal Register, and even the directory of open access journals. So we collected ISSNs, deduplicated, and took the bibliographic information and identified societies based on that. So in the end, we worked with these two databases, as I mentioned. So what was the result? We were able to identify from research organization Registry almost 1,500 societies that are publishing potentially scholarly journals. So that's how we are able to identify societies in the registry. But what we also discover is that the registry itself has several different organization types, and there is no type for association or society, or let alone learned society. So we find that almost 1/2 of the societies are included in the type other, or either non-profit type of organization. So identifying directly societies from ROR register is very difficult, if not impossible. And what we also discovered is that based on the ISSN data, we were able to identify over 18,000 potential learned societies globally. So what we have in ROR only covers about 8% of those societies. And we would estimate that even the 18,000 is a low estimate. We are looking at higher number of learned societies globally. Here is a bit what we can tell about the landscape of learned societies based on simply those 1,500 societies we have in ROR. So we can look at the distribution across countries. We can also see clearly when we are talking here today about the quality of metadata and classifications, that in some countries, societies are identified as more often as non-profit or profit type of organization. So there is no really one solution that works across countries. What we can also see, and this is something we did manually. So we had the 1,500 societies from ROR, and we classified them to either hard sciences, including STEM mainly, or soft sciences, SSH, and then hard sciences. And we can also see distribution of societies based on the field focus or disciplinary focus. This is also something that would be of interest to investigate further. We can see also some differences between regions and continents in this. And we also looked at the geographical scope of societies. So based on the name of society, we can clearly see that some societies are very local. You mentioned a specific town in the name of the society, or it's national because it's a Finnish society of historians, or it's a regional European society or Latin American society or of this and that topic. Or it's decidedly international society and distributions of those. One thing we did is that we compared also the language in which the journals are published by societies in the ROR dataset of 1,500 societies, as well as in the ISSN larger dataset of more than 18,000 societies. And what we see is that the ROR dataset of societies is much more biased towards English-only journals and also multilingual journals. So this already gives us an impression, an indication that the societies that are registered in ROR are more often from UK or US or Australia, and less from maybe other parts of the world, and often maybe not so much including the national societies that operate in languages other than English. So this way we can already get an idea also of the potential biases in the ROR dataset at the moment. So what we were able to conclude based on our study is that ROR database already includes a substantial number of learned societies, making it a potential source of further development expansion to be developed as a database of societies. And on top of that, it is an open resource. So that would be a developing open infrastructure for this type of organization. But of course, the coverage of ROR is still very limited, as we learned, comparing the 1,500 societies to the 18,000 societies we identify from the ISSN dataset. And we already discovered that the ROR dataset could be biased. So it would be important to improve representativeness of the ROR data also in terms of local societies operating in different languages. One very good question based on what I have been hearing today would be that should we include in ROR also maybe already defunct societies that once existed but have ended their operation. So what we suggested in the preprint that we have published on this topic, that one possible step could be for a ROR register to improve its data schema to include either society or even scholarly society as one of the organization types. But that might not be a very feasible solution because the categories in ROR are currently very broad. Even there is no category for university. It's under larger group of educational institution. So what we in the end thought the better solution is to build a separate directory on top of ROR, where we have identified societies, and you can use to browse and find societies from ROR. And now I am showing you a couple of slides about the solution we are trying to build. So idea of a directory of learned societies, which we are hoping to launch this spring, is that if society is not already in ROR database, or the first step is to suggest addition to the ROR database of the society. You need name, indicate organization type. There could be information about Wikipedia page, or if there is Wikidata, some identifiers like ISNI or GRID, and the starting year, country, and so on, city of where they operate. Then the ROR ID of the society would be communicated to us, and we add it to our database of societies. Also, society can indicate us to the ISSNs of serials that they are publishing, so we can also showcase that aspect of the society's activities. And then the society would become visible in the directory of learned societies. And here is a kind of a very rough, early simple version of the potential database or portal that we have. So there you would have some search filters Are they active, non-active? What is the field of science? This could, of course, be much more refined. Geographical scope, are you looking at national, international, regional, local societies, or geographical location based on continent or country? Here I have also indicated that you have a list of societies, but also information about the journals they are publishing. You can also have visualizations like overview how the distribution of societies across towns and continents, and hopefully also some machine readable access to the information and download opportunity to export in Excel the information about societies. And yes, this is my final slide about potential uses. So certainly for finding societies in general or in specific for specific fields or countries or regions or scope, there are many projects. I know EU projects that they want to engage with different type of stakeholders, and so far every project that I have been a member to has had a lot of trouble in finding information about societies. It's very difficult to discover or find it in an easy way. Same for research, and also finding journals published by learned societies. There is an increasing interest now in the development of scholarly communication to, let's say, policymakers find a lot of value in scholar-led publishing by research communities themselves. And that's why it could be important in future to be able to discover, especially journals published by learned societies. Then there are, of course, applications in research. We can specifically have applications in bibliometrics, in scholarly communication research, in research on research, how science is structured, how it is conducted, communicated, and so on. But I think maybe I stop here.
Okay,
and
thank you very much. Question.
Mm-hmm. We have a question.
Question in the chat, of course.
You don't have to say the name.
Yes. Do you think your directory would be linked to Wikidata? And do you consider adding a new Wikidata property so that reciprocal links to your directory could be in Wikidata? A quick Wikidata query gives almost 4,000 results when one asks for instances of learned societies.
Yes, I believe it could be linked to Wikidata, and this is something we have actually experimented with Thomas. So I think that is one way of enriching the facilities of the directory, so that there could be links to much more rich information about societies. Of course, we would have to somehow also facilitate societies to create more Wikidata, maybe about the societies. And also already in ROR register, there are links, possibility to include links to Wikipedia and also Wikidata. So actually, if society's information is in good condition in the ROR register, then it would be already available for the directory. But certainly we would like to work in this direction.
Yeah, some question that do you have a clear definition of what learned society is? That's question one. The second is that do you plan to cover historical societies or which defunct and not today exist 17th century? And Yeah, the third one is that sometimes this organization merged together remained split and so forth. So do you manage this on your level, or is the ROR's responsibility to manage this kind of change?
Excellent questions, especially the first one on definition. So this is something we come up with all the time. So there is, of course, no maybe accurate universal definition of learned society, and this, what they do actually differs also between countries. Maybe there is some way to, as I said in the beginning, voluntary, non-profit, focusing on advancing research in the field, and maybe this would distinguish learned society from researcher union, that union is advancing rather the interest of the members as professionals, whereas there is in learned society more the focus on advancing the field of research. So that could be some direction for definition. But in the beginning, we are not looking to be too restrictive. So I hope that this is just the first step, and later on we will be developing, and hopefully also in collaboration with the societies themselves, be able to characterize their operations in a way that it would be possible to make these necessary distinctions on how the societies are focusing their operations. The question about old societies is very good from the historical perspective. So first of all, there is in the ROR database already information about the start year. That much I know. And there is also seems to be information about whether the organization is active or inactive. So maybe there is also information in the data schema, but I can't remember by heart if there is indication of the end year, like there is in the ISSN Center for the serials. But that is, of course, very interesting aspect. Also, if you look at what could be possible usages of the data, like trying to analyze in different countries emergence of societies in specific areas of research. Do they come up in a concerted way, and how do they merge or split? And we know that in social sciences and humanities, there are large number of small societies focused on very specific topics, but in STEM, they are rather broad and large in membership. So there are of course, these type of differences. But I'm not sure how it would be possible to manage the split merger issue, but that's a good point, and I will bring this back to my colleagues as well as a challenge.
I have a question, if I may. Have you thought about comparing the situation in the, let's say, Western European countries and Eastern European countries, where the Academy of Sciences, following the Soviet example, have been created in the past? So, because my assumption would be that in the Eastern countries, quite a lot of the roles or the activities of the learned societies have been substituted by the official Academy of Science institutes. So just my question, whether there is some comparison or some exact number for something on that.
Yeah, that would certainly be something to investigate. I know that our colleague Emmanuel Kulczycki has already also pointed out this difference between Eastern and Western Europe, and especially I know that in Eastern Europe the academies of science are actually operating quite differently than the academies of science in Finland. Mm-hmm. So I assume that in Poland maybe also in many other Eastern European countries, academies of science are also research performing organizations employing researchers. That is not the case in many of the Western learned societies. Of course, there are exceptions. So this is certainly one difference. But I think this is something to discover, because we know really so little about the current role of learned societies. Maybe there are many learned societies in Poland or many other countries, and we just don't kind of understand what is exactly what they do, how they contribute to science or society. And that's something we want to discover. I think it's also part maybe of the agenda of the digital humanities research.
One last question.
I'm guessing, seeing as you're here on behalf of the Federation of Finnish Learning Societies, that Finland does have an ordered regime of gathering together all learning societies, so you have a good database of all of them, right? And I guess I'm curious about how many countries do have an ordered regime for listing their learning societies. So like I know the UK, for example, to be a society of, you have to be registered with the tax office.
Yeah.
So the government has a list of them online, and it's actually quite hard to become a society of, because you have to go through a certain set of tax processes to get tax reliefs. So do you have a sense of like sort of, not literally how many, but sort of, are there many countries that do this, kind of have defined lists of their own learning societies in their own countries? Or is this sort of quite incredibly disparate? Maybe you said that earlier on, I take it.
No, it is very, very disparate. So here we collected this kind of information. We wanted to see, is the information available about the number of societies in different countries? And we discovered in UK, for instance, 200. There is a list. Maybe it's in Wikipedia. But
on the government website, it's on gov.uk. So.
Yeah. So we do have, but umbrella organizations like in Finland, there are very few. Austria has one. And in France, there is at least 4 social sciences and humanities. But in many other countries, no. And that's why it is indeed a challenge to really understand. Based on what our survey research to social sciences and humanities societies in 7 countries, we understand that the societies play a really similar role. They have similar type of organization. They are more or less of the same size. They have similar budgets. They face same challenges. So it's one kind of beast in the landscape of academic organization. But we just need more information to understand what they do. And national bibliographies, actually, that's why we were in contact with Thomas earlier, is that because societies are very often active publishers of journals and books, it could be that in national bibliographies, the metadata about publications, at least when it comes to publisher, there could be indications about earlier existing or current learned societies that are somehow involved in publishing. So that's one possible avenue of collaboration that I clearly see with the work that many colleagues are doing in this community.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much.